the Leon Charney Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
Hi, I'm Leon Charney, and we're back with another hot show. We have two filmmakers on with us today. We have Mr. Coffey back, the man who wrote the book on the Vatican Files and is an expert on crime. And we're going to talk about Gianni Versace and how that whole thing came about and why it came about. He's going to give you things that no one else has talked about, although the whole world is talking about it today. And then Peter Vallone, the city council president, who really runs the city. You can't move in the city without Peter Vallone. He comes on a little later. So we got a really hot show, and stay with us. Gentlemen, it is an honor and a pleasure to see two gentlemen who have carved out about a life apart, Hasidism in America, which is a... Now, this is not only for Jews, because they have rave reviews here from Michael Medvey of the New York Post, right? He says, in a series of beautifully shot, startlingly intimate interviews with the stunning documentary, A Life Apart, presents a series of Hasidic families, individuals, definitively demystifying a segment of Orthodox Judaism previously appeared impenetrable to outsiders. Wow. And then the New York Times.
And he gave it 4 stars.
4 stars. And he blew you away. So let me introduce you. Oren Rudavsky.
That's me.
Son of a Reform rabbi.
Absolutely.
And Menachem Daum.
Menachem Daum, right.
Son of an Orthodox Hasidic family. Who brought you two together?
That's ironically 2 Catholic women who are filmmakers. Knew us both.
As the Puerto Rican said in Mexico, you kidding?
Absolutely. That's the truth.
Really?
Yes.
Tell us a story. It's a fascinating story.
The Zablotny sisters. They deserve fame. Menachem knew them first.
Well, they're doing a film on Dorothy Day, the radical Catholic, the founder of the radical Catholic workers movement.
Joe Coffey he's an expert on Catholicism. He pegged the Vatican, but he's a good Catholic yet.
And we had discussed their film, and they had engaged Oren Rudavsky's cinematographic skills on their project, and somehow or other they were the shadchan. They brought us together.
All right, I could see Oren doing a film. He's a filmmaker, but how does a Hasidic Jew like you get involved with films?
Well, my parents came after the Holocaust, and I grew up in Bronzeville, Brooklyn, in a little garish steeple of mostly survivors of Gur. At that time, in the late, in the 50s, Hasidim were really maintaining very low-key, tentative profile. They had seen what happened when you were outwardly Jewish in Europe and before the Holocaust, and they had just come to this new country. There was a lot of pressures not to rock the boat, to draw attention to your Judaism. There was at that time even a House Un-American Activities Committee. You didn't want to be un-American.
Joe McCarthy.
So even the Hasidim that were sort of regrouping, they were clean-shaven for the most part. They would, if they would have a fur hat like Hasidim, where they would keep it in the synagogue but not wear it in the street. They were very, Hasid would walk in the street with a beard. They would say, there goes one of the Smith brothers.
Right, you're right. Cough drops.
Cough drops, right. They had cough drops with this one. There was a period of time when there was a very uncertain future for Hasidism after the Holocaust here in America, whether they would or wouldn't. And my parents, their generation, decided to make sacrifices to rebuild this community. They didn't fully understand why they were doing it, perhaps because they had a lot of unanswered questions after the Holocaust. They had a lot of questions against both the Rebbe's, who perhaps didn't warn them, and against God, who allowed the Holocaust to happen. But they went ahead, nonetheless. They started having children in America. They had to decide how they want to raise their kids. And after a lot of soul searching, they made sacrifices to rebuild Hasidism.
What is your profession today?
I used to be, this is like my 3rd or 4th career.
I figured. A Hasidic Jew doesn't become born to be a filmmaker.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
well, you read. What were your other 3? A teacher?
Yes, correct. Yeah, I used to be an academic. I used to be director of research at the Brookdale Center on Aging of Hunter College. I did a lot of research in the actual intergenerational issues. And in a way, this film is about the kind of intergenerational transfer of values from one generation to the next.
Oren, your background, yes. Reform rabbi, totally, probably never heard of a chassid.
Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, my father is a Reform rabbi, but my mother came from Poland, And she grew up in an Orthodox home that I actually found out when I started working on this film with Menachem.
You didn't know that before?
Well, no, I knew they were Orthodox, but I didn't realize that my grandfather was actually a Ger Hasid. And of course, it was in the days when he didn't have a beard.
Let me explain that to the audience. There are many Hasidic families, so to speak. There's the Gera, the Bobova, the Lubavitcher, the Satmar. Who else?
Those are the major ones.
Munkach and many others.
Many of them are named after cities in Europe.
That's correct.
And so there are many sects. Like the Satmar Hasidim don't wear ties.
That's correct.
And Menachem here wears a tie, and Lubavitcher also wear ties. Do you wear a black hat when you're in the street?
No, I've got one foot in the Hasidic world and one foot somewhat out of it. A real Hasid would not, for the most part, wear a tie. Tie creates a separation between the brain and the heart, and when the Hasidim pray, they don't like to do that.
We had Simon Jacobson on here, who was the Zocher, the scribe for Menachem Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he was here with a tie.
Here's tie. Well,
And a shirt. And a shirt.
People,
Yeah, there are real
make
variations.
compromises, and
Yeah.
Menachem, of course, doesn't have payas either.
Right.
The Lubavitch don't, but most other Hasidim at least have something up there. You
Right.
know,
But the
depending
point
on-
is that there isn't one Hasidic community. There
That's
are
right.
a
People
series
don't
of
know
Hasidic
that.
communities.
People say the Hasidim.
They're all
They
the
don't know
same.
there's a split division, you know, of many Hasidic people. I'm sure you show that in your film.
And they also think they're all Lubavitch because they've seen the ads on TV or
Right.
they've seen whatever, whereas
Right.
actually our film focuses, a very small proportion of it is about the Lubavitch Hasidim, who are the ones who proselytize.
Do you run the gamut of many Hasidic families?
We do, but our main focus is not to distinguish between one kind of Hasidism and another. Our main focus is to challenge the audience to look at a group of people who have chosen not to do things the way every other immigrant group who's come to America.
Have you
has
ever
done
heard of
things.
Chaim Potok?
I've heard of him once or twice, yes.
Have you seen any of his stuff? Read any of it?
Yes.
Does he capture that community at all? My name is Asher Lev.
Right. I think he gets at that crux of that. That was the period when the struggle between
Right.
the immigrants coming to America, how much should they take with them of what the way of life that they brought from Europe, and how much should they kind of try to accommodate America? And that's actually at the heart of this film's struggle as well.
Your parents have seen this film?
I wish to say that they had, but my mom passed away middle of the making of the film, and my father, unfortunately, stroke, and he would have had nachas. I'm sorry.
He would have enjoyed it?
It's really a story about him and my mom.
That's
and
wonderful. Oren, your parents have seen it?
Again, my father has seen it. My mother, unfortunately, also passed away. My father got, yes, great nachas from seeing this.
Nachas is
absolutely.
joy.
Yes.
And are you married?
Yes, I am. Thank
What does
God.
your wife think of this film?
My wife is very tolerant of deviance, and she let's put it this way, she allowed me to give up my regular day job a few years ago to pursue filmmaking. So I give her as much
It's
credit
really
as possible.
unusual. I mean, Oren, I can understand. You're a filmmaker, and there are many Jewish filmmakers, but a Hasidic Jew to be a filmmaker. You're both producers?
Well, yeah, we're both producers, but I think Menachem sees his filmmaking as a form of study, that he would rather pursue his work, maybe it's his Jewish work, but in the world of filmmaking rather than in the pursuit of reading books. So I don't think he's really strayed as far as he might have.
You don't feel as you strayed, do you?
No.
Is it an internal battle with you? You know, we had some Hasidic women on the show who told us they never watched television. Do you have a television?
Yes, I do, and therefore that's what I mentioned. I'm not 100% your typical chassid. I kind of have made
But with other
compromises.
you're a Babava chassid?
No, but most Ger Hasidim would not have a television.
They would not.
And in fact, in our film, there is a Satmar Chassid who allows us graciously to film, even though he says, I will never see this film, and I will never watch the television, and I will never... But he allowed us to film.
If you gave him a
nonetheless.
donation, he might do it also.
I don't know. We invited him.
Money moves the world, Oren.
We did invite him to Lincoln Center to the film.
That's not a donation, that's a seat.
Okay, well...
You're talking about guilt, money. You'd be surprised what happens with money. Oren, is this your
Yes.
first film?
No, I've worked on over a dozen films, and I've worked on productions for Primetime Live and The Real World and other,
Was this more fun than all of them?
This was more fun. I don't know, more fun. I've
More
ridden on the
satisfying?
back of freight trains with hobos, so that was perhaps more fun and more dangerous than.
He's a Meshuggah.
Yeah.
That's why
In Gunson.
we work well together.
So yeah, I would. But this was.
You haven't been to Miami Beach over the weekend, have you?
No, I haven't. There's a connection. I'm not going to touch that one. No. Yeah.
Hobos are more exciting than Hasidim?
Well, they have certain things in common. They both.
Is that right?
They're in pursuit of freedom in different ways. I mean, the hobos are riding freight trains looking to escape, and Hasidim are praying to seek their escape.
That's a fascinating statement that you made, because mostly people think that Hasidism is a way of enclosing yourself and not seeking freedom. Am I right, Menachem?
But there is a way of by reducing the need to fulfill a lot of what one character in a film calls the bourgeois pursuit of security. By freeing yourself from that and freeing yourself from the American race for success, it opens up other possibilities. They do make compromises. They do make trade-offs. They gain freedom by giving up the pursuit of certain things that Americans take for granted.
Oren, last week we had a big panel discussion with Craig Horowitz, who wrote the piece in New York Magazine about disappearing Jews in America. And I had Yitz Greenberg on, who's an Orthodox rabbi, a contrarian, and Jonathan Rosen of the Forward. We had a 1-hour intensive discussion. The thesis being that the assimilation in America is so great and the comfort is so great in America for Jews that within 50 years the only people that will remain as Jews are the Haredi Jews or the Hasidim. You take, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't agree with that at all. I think, I live on the Upper West Side, and if you live on the Upper West Side, you think all forms of Judaism are flourishing to a degree that you can't even imagine.
Yeah, but you got to go to Milwaukee and see what's going on.
Well, that's possible, but I think...
I don't know. I'm asking you. You're a Jewish filmmaker right now.
Yeah. I see. I don't see that happening. That's not the trend that I see. I see the community that I grew up in that my father was a rabbi
Where was it?
In Boston, in Brookline, Massachusetts. Was a very assimilated German Jewish community. And since those days when I was in synagogue there, where everything was basically in English and spoken in response and very little Hebrew, I think Jews have come a long way, actually, come back.
Where did you go
tradition.
To school?
I went to a Hebrew day school, went up to the age of 12.
Right.
It was a conservative, Salman Schechter school.
Okay. And after that?
After that, I went to junior high school and high school.
And college?
And college, Oberlin College in Ohio. And certainly, there a lot of the leading, I would say a lot of the leading families in the congregation my father was at, a lot of the kids did marry non-Jews.
Yeah, that's a big
But I don't see that as the end.
Are you
of
kosher?
The road. No.
Are you?
Not.
Yes, I am.
Do you eat at his house?
Water, perhaps.
All right, now that you're not drinking, or you are drinking water at his house, let's bring on the clips, and Oren, tell us what we're going to see.
Okay, there are 3 clips you're going to see out of the film. The first one presents image of the Hasidim that you see them on the street, and stereotypes that we just got by recording people we literally just met on the street and just asked them, what do you think of the Hasidim? That's number 1. And that leads into the film. It's almost the beginning of the film. The second clip is of a black man we just happened to run into in Prospect Park during this ceremony called Tashlich, where hundreds throwing the sins away into the water.
Right.
And the Bubba of Rebbe was there, and this black man who worked at Prospect Park was surrounded by these Hasidim, and later he saw us with a camera. We thought we were
and
TV
you filmed
crew.
It on Rosh Hashanah?
No, it was between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We never filmed during any time.
Because Tashlich is the second day of Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, well, the Hasidim do Tashlich at the last minute before Yom Kippur. So they've had 9 days to think about their sins, and the 9th day they throw them out.
I didn't know that.
So it's a little different tradition.
And the third scene?
The third scene takes place in Russia, where we followed our one Lubavitch character who works out of Moscow. His name's Beryl Lazar, and he has been there for several years trying to rebuild a Lubavitch
I was in
community
Moscow with President Clinton, and a Lubavitch Chosid picked me right out of the press corps and took me to the synagogue out there. And Kunin, I think his name was, Rabbi
Yes.
Kunin.
Right. Well, you may see him on tape.
Let's watch. Let's watch.
I noticed that the women always wear wigs and they wear long dresses. I noticed that.
It seems that they do have close families. They're very family-orientated, it seems.
Then I'm always struck by how many children the women are having.
I'm not a chassid because I'm a woman, and I believe in egalitarianism.
They squeeze George Washington real tight. They really do. They good. I need somebody like that to save money for me.
They smell, they don't know how to dress, they all dress the same, they're ugly, they're mean, they push.
The kids do have respect in their own community amongst their own people. When they go outside of that, they don't have respect. That's the way they are. With a goy, whatever they say.
Hasidim are a minority within a minority. They arouse controversy among other Jews, no less than among Gentiles. Who are the Hasidim? Why have they stubbornly refused to join America's mainstream?
If I were anywhere else and these are non-Jewish children or non-Orthodox Jewish children, I'm presuming that at least one of them would say, well, mister, what's going on? What are you doing? Or hello, or nothing like that. In fact, I said hello, and they sort of, hi. One young lady said hi, and the others pulled her back. And I said to myself, these are children. These are children that are going to grow up and be adults one day. And the perceptions that they have of me, or as a black man, or as a non-Jewish person, I'm not too sure. I don't know what to presume. They're being conditioned to think a certain way now. When they're older, when they're in their 20s, I mean, what is that going to mean? What's that going to mean as far as the community that they live in? Living in New York City, which is predominantly non-white. What's that going to mean when there's some sort of conflict or potential for conflict between Jewish and non-Jewish peoples, and there's going to be a need to communicate?
The Red Square and the Kremlin were known to be the place where all the anti-religion and anti-God thoughts came from. People were used to not telling even their neighbors that they were Jewish, crossing off their documents the word Ivrei, which means Jewish. By lighting a menorah on the street, we are proclaiming, look, you have to be proud and happy to be a Jew, and you can rejoice being a Jew even in the streets. We're trying to get the Russian army band to come play some Jewish songs for us. To New York, they said they got everything, beautiful pictures, and everything was perfect.
Fantastic. Great job.
Thank you.
And you know, it's not only a film, this will really live forever. People want to see this, and they need to be educated. And I haven't seen enough of the film, but there's a digression from really positive to truly negative, and I think you've really captured what people feel.
People have a lot of feelings about the Hasidim, and they're not all good. And if you don't present it like it is, people are going to say this film is not the real thing. And
no, it looks great to me, and it's at the Walter. You can see it at the Walter Reed Theater at Lincoln Center. This week. Menachem, really, do you think there'll be a time? I mean, you can't integrate Hasidim because they really want to stay apart. Mm-hmm. So, what is the future?
Well. Personally, I would hope that some of the things that are successful, that Hasidim have succeeded in creating enthusiasm enough in their children so that they want to live this way of life and give it over to their grandchildren, some of that passion, some of that enthusiasm, hopefully will be adopted by other streams of Judaism, because if the children, and in this film there's lots of scenes of the intergenerational transmission of Hasidic way of life, they've made it fun to be a Hasidic kid. They've made kids want to adopt this, and hopefully other streams of Judaism.
Oren, you want to become a chassid now?
No, but I want to be able to go to their parties. I want to go
music.
to, well, for a man, let's, remember the men get to dance and sing and the women get to watch. We didn't see those scenes. But for a man, you can have fun there. And for a child, it's terrific fun. But I wouldn't want to be in that narrow world.
All right, we're out of time. Do you have any interest in converting him to Hasidism?
I think he may not even know how much the film has already converted him, but it's working its way.
This is the shtick of the Hasid. They always want to bring you to them. And no matter how ecumenical one gets, I think that they really try to do that. And not in a nasty way, through joy and through happiness. So you got to come back and tell me whether you got beard and Streimel and the whole works.
Okay.
Anyway, great to have you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Much.
Thank you for having us.
And if people are clever, they'll go to Walter Reed Theater.
Great. We hope so.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll be back with Joe Coffey, the man who knows everything about the mob and vigilantes and Gianni Versace types of murders. He was on Sam the Shepherd, I think. We'll get him on and we'll talk about it. We'll be right back. We're back. We're going to speak to Joe Coffey about the Gianni Versace case, and then Peter Vallone is coming on. Everyone knows Peter Vallone, the city council president, and maybe the next governor of New York, so stay tuned. He's got a lot to say about things you wouldn't know that he has been involved with, like Swiss bank accounts and Christian persecution. A lot of stuff from Peter Vallone. Joe, you're our resident expert on crime here. What is this Versace case all about?
Well, I did a couple of talk shows regarding that. I did CNN this afternoon, a live show with Burden of Proof, and I did Dateline Monday, which will be aired probably tomorrow night.
So you're not exclusive on this show? And I'm Jewish.
And the gist of the interview had to do with how the police failed, how the FBI failed. And I said, in no uncertain terms, I said, it's getting a little tiresome. When you have O.J. Simpson killing 2 people, Timothy McVeigh killing a couple of 100 people, and the issue becomes whether the FBI lab or the FBI or the police screwed up. Here you have a situation where an individual was going around killing people out of vengeance because he felt someone gave him AIDS, and he was going to kill the people that gave him AIDS.
Do we know that for sure, by the way?
In the law enforcement community, it's well known.
Really?
Right, but they haven't, the press hasn't really picked it up yet. But anyway, he kills Versace. Prior to that, he killed 4 other people. And the hue and cry was very, very, page 32 of the New York Times.
Maybe. Right. He killed the caretaker, grave, no one paid any attention to it.
Right, and all of a sudden he kills a world-famous designer,
right.
And it becomes a headline, and the publicity comes out, and now they don't catch him, he kills himself. The publicity should have been there from the beginning when you have a deviant like this out there killing people, but it wasn't. I heard the woman who's the wife of the caretaker in the cemetery who was killed on the radio today, and she was in tears. She said, how come nobody's ever interviewed me? How come nobody came to me? How come the press never came to me? How come there was no manhunt for the kill of my husband? And she makes a good point. And the point I made on some of these shows was, the FBI is being criticized for not catching this guy before he killed Gianni Versace. Why don't they talk about how come he wasn't stopped
him before he got the grave there?
So it's incredible.
It's all press?
Well, I believe the press in this case did a great job. I'm not a big proponent of the press interfering in investigations. For example, the Son of Sam case, which I had back in 1977, and I got promoted out of that case, they interfered with that case to the degree where they delayed us catching him because of their tactics. And I'll give you a specific example. We come up with a plan of shutting down the bridges in New York, because this guy always hit in either Queens or the Bronx at the beginning. And the press got a hold of our plan to shut down the bridges at the toll booths, and they publicized it. So what did the Son of Sam do, who we later found out to be David Berkowitz? He moved his geographic location to Brooklyn, which we didn't have covered the night he hit there. We covered Queens and the Bronx, because every time he hit, it was the Queens or the Bronx. And we knew he was going to hit that night, but he moved to Brooklyn that night because of the press.
I said to somebody the other day that I have never seen so much publicity on trying to capture somebody as they did on this Versace case. It was unbelievable. And the press and the television, 77, I don't think there was as much television as there is now. You have these cable outlets. If you watched television last night, you saw CNBC carrying this thing live. You saw CNN carrying it live, and I think Ted Koppel practically had a live broadcast.
That's correct.
I mean, it was wild.
Well, you got to remember something. In 1977, when the Son of Sam was terrorizing New York City, it was just New York City. It wasn't a nationwide manhunt.
That's true. But New York is
oh, still New York, but you still had a situation where they're looking for a guy nationwide.
Well,
manhunt.
what about the Boston Strangler?
Well, then we're going way back then.
Right.
We were just into television then. You didn't have any of these major news things.
Right.
But the Son of Sam and the Canaan thing. The reason I was called on these shows was to compare them. There's no comparison. The Son of Sam was a psychotic killer who killed without purpose, other than the fact that he received messages from the devil through a dog. We were dealing with someone who we didn't know. This manhunt here, they knew exactly who they were looking for by name, by description, by everything, by pedigree.
Did you have any doubts they would get him?
Oh, none at all. In fact, when I did Dateline, I taped Dateline Monday, and they were going to air it Tuesday night, but they decided not to air it. And when we closed the show, the interviewer said to me, "Will they catch this man?" I said, "Very shortly, he'll either be in a shootout with the police or he will commit suicide."
Really?
That was Monday morning.
Did you know Canaan?
No, but I know the psyche of these people. Now, Canaan was an individual who I don't view as a serial killer. I believe that...
Spree killer?
I don't even think that's the case. I think he's a guy who killed out of vengeance. He contacted AIDS from an individual who he had an affair with, a sexual encounter. He knew who they were, and he went after them, and he killed them. And I believe Versace was one of them.
You think Versace and this fellow, Canaan, whatever his name is, they had an affair?
Right. And I believe, in my opinion...
You mean his thoughts maybe Versace gave him AIDS?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And I think that's going to come out in the future.
Did Versace have AIDS? Does anybody know?
I couldn't say. But whether he did or not, if Canaan had an affair with him, and he viewed him as one of the possibilities who gave him AIDS, that's why he murdered him.
They caught this guy actually by, was it an accident or a tip-off that someone had gotten into the houseboat? What exactly
They didn't
happened?
catch him. He committed suicide. What happened, a caretaker who took care of that boat, which belonged to a German citizen, returned from a short vacation, walked into the boat and found this guy there. And he ran out.
Any relationship between that German fellow and Canaan? Does anybody know?
That's yet to be determined.
I mean, why did he pick this houseboat?
Nobody knows at this point.
Was he in disguise? Does anybody know?
No, I think the caretaker recognized him. That's why he ran out. According to the news reports, as the caretaker ran out,
and
he heard a shot. He thought it was fired at him.
Right.
But it turned out that was the shot that Canaan turned on himself.
Tell me, Joe, as a police person, could he have disguised himself to such an extent that no one would recognize him? Or is too much science today that makes it available to you guys? Suppose he dressed up as a woman. You think the police could have spotted him?
I think with an individual like that, it doesn't matter what kind of a disguise he uses. It's only a matter of time before he gets caught. He was self-destructive, obviously. He thought he was dying of AIDS, and he was looking for a way out, and he couldn't find it, because if it continued the way it was before Versace was murdered, where nobody really paid attention to him, he could have gone on for quite a while.
Right.
But because of the intensive manhunt, the publicity, the incredible inflection of everybody in the United States was talking about this guy.
Everybody was inundated with information about him, right.
There was really no way.
Topic of conversation with everybody.
He wasn't going to get away with it. You know, he was going to get caught very shortly.
Did the New York police have any involvement in this?
No.
What was this big headline in the New York Post that he had lived in New York for a while? Do you know anything about
Probably
that?
did. I mean, we have a large gay community here. He probably did live here. We know he was out in Long Island in the Hamptons. We know he was in San Francisco. We know he was in San Diego. Wherever there's a large gay population, you're going to find these type of individuals, and they're going to, do what they do.
So what do we learn from this whole thing? That life is a tragedy?
Well, of course, life is a tragedy. We all know that. You know, the old comedy and tragedy in the Broadway theater. What do we learn from it? What I learned from the Son of Sam was that it's not going to end. When I interviewed people before we caught David Berkowitz, I interviewed hundreds of people who were outpatients from places like Creedmoor and Central Islip and mental institutions who are outpatients who should have been inpatients. I mean, we have dumped mental patients onto the streets of this country by the thousands. And I interviewed people during the Son of Sam investigation, which is 20 years ago, that should still be in. They were worse than David Berkowitz.
Really?
Absolutely. And
Whatever
it
happened
was
to
scary,
Berkowitz?
believe me.
What happened to Berkowitz?
He's in jail for life. He pled guilty. He never went to trial. He pled guilty.
And no parole ever?
No parole ever. He's tried, but he's been turned down.
You know, it's interesting. One guy was a serial killer, and Cunanan was really out for vengeance because he was angry, right? That's your determination.
He was out for vengeance because he was, by his perception, he was afflicted with a disease by someone else.
So the show people who got really upset about it, and the designers and all the people who are celebrities really went into a panic. They started hiring security guys, et cetera, but really it's sort of, the pattern was narrowed to AIDS people and people who gave him AIDS.
Well, the overwhelming majority of people in this country, in this world, who have AIDS are homosexual. Wow. I mean, that's a fact.
I guess so.
So, I mean, one thing follows the other. But I want to make something clear about serial killers and spree killers and something else. I equate this individual, Cunanan, with Colin Ferguson and Timothy McVeigh.
Really?
They killed out of rage. Colin Ferguson got on that Long Island Railroad train,
right, and
basically his motivation was rage.
Right.
McVeigh, the 180 degrees, diametrically opposed, opposite side of the spectrum, he had a rage against the United States government,
right,
because of Waco and whatever, or Ruby Ridge.
Right.
And he killed over 200 people. I put Cunanan in that category. I don't put him in the category of Berkowitz or Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy. This is a whole different operation here. And we're going to see more of it. Believe me.
Joe, I know you got to go. I appreciate you coming down here after doing Dateline and NBC and CBS, and this is your home, though. Don't forget it.
That's right.
And whenever you want to come back and tell us about how we want to talk about rampant crime. We got Peter Vallone coming on. He's going to tell us how safe the city is.
Well, let me just interject that. I worked for Rudy Giuliani in the U.S. Attorney's Office for a long time. The job they've done on crime in the city, and not just Rudy, but that whole administration,
the council,
including the city council and the police department, fabulous. And the attack they made on the quality of life crimes was the key to their success. They did a great job. I worked in Harlem for a long time as a cop. I ride through Harlem, and I see you can now eat off those streets. That's how clean they are. So by cleaning up the crime, they've cleaned up the sanitation problem. They've improved the quality of life in this city, and they should be commended for it.
Peter Vallone is quelling now.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Joe. We'll be right back with Council President Peter Vallone, and he just got a great endorsement about how safe and great the city is. So stay tuned, and we'll find out more from Peter. We're back. We're here with the Speaker of the City Council, Peter Vallone. I said Council President before. I apologize. It's been vacated, that post. And this man is a powerful man in the city. In my opinion, the most powerful. He may not say that, but Rudy Giuliani knows it, and I know it, and the city is great, and everybody's happy in the city. Real estate is doing well, financial, jobs, everything's doing well, Peter.
Well, most things are going right. There's still a lot that has to be addressed, but it takes everybody working together, Leon, as you know, to really accomplish anything.
All right, a lot of people don't know that you really were involved, and I asked you to come on the show because I said to you when I was down at City Hall that you're really the unsung hero of the Swiss problem, debacle, whatever you want to call it, in terms of Jews not getting their money back from the Swiss banks. And what you did is, it was a great story. Your lawyer, Gary Alterman, he wrote the whole thing up for me. It's like, he wrote it like it was a documentary and drama. And what you did is you threatened to pull their overnight deposits, is that it?
Yeah, well, most people don't understand that New York City is really the financial capital of the world, as you just indicated.
Right.
And when the rest of the world looks at the United States of America, they see New York City. This is the first stop for many, many people, like my grandparents when they first came here, and many people. We have the fourth largest budget. The only larger budgets that we have in this country are the whole country itself, the whole state of California, and the whole state of New York. We have a $34 billion expense budget. So when David Dinkins was mayor, and I was speaker at the time, was just elected, we introduced a bill to divest our millions and millions of dollars from South Africa unless they began the process of freeing Mandela and ending apartheid.
You mean depositing with?
Right. We deposit, you know they made our school lunches? I mean, we have South Africa supplied our school lunches,
Is that right?
believe it or not.
No, I didn't believe that.
Because under the purchasing program, you have to go to the lowest responsible bidder.
Right.
We have the largest public school system in the world, 1,100,000 kids. So when we talked about divesting, and in fact, we did divest from South Africa because they didn't end apartheid, that hurt them economically. And it started the ball rolling in the entire country.
Absolutely.
And as you know, Mandela was released, the evil of apartheid ended, and New York City
But let me ask you a
was
question.
a forerunner.
Do school lunches go up in price now?
No, it didn't. Absolutely not. But then when we found out, and you know, we do have our Washington, we work closely with Washington, we work closely with Albany because, as I said, we do have the largest budget and we do have 8 million people in this town. So when we found out in Washington that hearings were scheduled back in April 1996 with Senator D'Amato, as you know, who became chairman of the Banking Committee, that people, that not one penny had been returned to a survivor, to any of the family of the victims of the Holocaust in over a half a century. Not one penny of billions of dollars that had been deposited by people who lost their lives because of a maniac and because of an evil and a horror. And Swiss banks were still holding their money. And as you know, Leon, and as many of us did not know until I commenced this investigation, you open a bank account in New York City and you don't do anything with it in 7 years, they take your money. Right? The reason why they go to Switzerland is because it lasts forever. They never close an account. And you have an agreement with the depositors that either the depositors or their heirs or descendants are able to get that money out. How come no one ever was able to prove, and many, many survivors tried, they never gave a penny back? So what we said was, okay, that's what we'll do then. We don't have to invest our money in Swiss banks. And do you know how much money we put in a Swiss bank in one day?
No, how much?
$255 million.
It's more than my producer man.
So when I introduced this bill back in January of 1997,
yeah, but it's very dramatic, and I want to go through that with you. Now, the thing that you have, you control the purse strings.
Absolutely.
D'Amato, who's done a great job in airing this whole thing, he's a senator, he's a legislator. You are the power, and money talks. So what you did is you put your mouth where your money was, and you said, okay, we're going to get into you guys and we're going to stop it. And this is not a criticism of anybody else who's been involved, but he who holds the purse strings calls the music.
It's much more difficult on a federal level because
Absolutely.
You have a Senate, you have a House of Representatives, you have a President. In New York City, we can work much more quickly.
Right. All right.
We have one council and one mayor.
So you wrote this bill, what was the number of it? 182, 192? I forgot.
That's right. We have the bill here, which is at that time was intro 960, and it...
All right, so this is great fun. I mean, this is dramatic. So you alert the people that you're going to do this, right?
Yes.
And so the Swiss politicians...
Within 1 week. Within 1 week.
How many Swiss chocolates did you get?
No Swiss chocolate.
How many Swiss watches?
I had the Swiss ambassador in my office within 1 week. The head of the Swiss parliament, Lily Nabels, who was in charge of this particular operation of trying to find out where the Swiss money was. The 3 heads of the Swiss banks in 1 week sitting in my office in New York City. And I said, what are you going to do about it? And they said, we will open up an account of 100 million Swiss francs or 74 million American dollars.
150.
Right. And they will open up within 1 week. I said, we're going to have a hearing. I said, we're inviting Senator D'Amato down. I said, you can testify. You tell the world what you're going to do. And incidentally, Senator D'Amato did come down.
Right.
And he couldn't believe how quick this...
Yeah, you got action, I'm telling you.
They testified, the Swiss ambassador, who is now, Dabney, who is now has been named officially, because the last guy made anti-Semitic remarks.
Right, according to a footnote by Gary Alterman, he was an anti-Semite.
Absolutely. But the new fellow is not, thank God. And they did open up the account. And as a matter of fact,
how do you feel?
One of the great things,
New York Times today.
This was published in the New York Times, July 23rd, 1997. The first list of thousands of bank accounts that they suddenly found. They found now bank accounts that are unclaimed, that are believed to be those deposited by people who were slaughtered, by the victims of the Holocaust. And this is the first publication, and money is beginning to flow. Not that it's a cure-all. This is only justice. But in
but you
fact,
did it. You put the hammer to them. You know, everybody can talk in the Senate. Now, I understand Stu Eisenstadt, who was the Assistant Secretary of Commerce at that time, called you from Switzerland.
He said, don't touch it.
Don't touch it, lay low, because there's a lot of diplomatic relationships going on here, and we don't want to break the banking system. It's not a criticism of Eisenstadt, but he was representing the federal policy. And anytime you get involved with these types of things, and I know because I represented banks against the government, and I've been on both sides, it's politically, it's a very tough move.
There's no question about the fact that much more can be done on a federal level than on a city level. What we said...
Look, no, but what you did is...
Yeah, we don't have a foreign policy in New York City, but we have a moral policy.
Right.
And people of this city will no longer stand silent. We won't stand silent. It's impossible for us to stand silent. After what happened half a century ago, how in the world can you stand silent again? It doesn't make any sense. And that's what we start, as you know, that led us into the Christian persecution that's going on now.
Well, you really deserve kudos when you go to heaven. Amongst the better bills that you wrote, this is going to be up there.
This was one of the really most satisfying things, because we gave a voice to people who have been silenced, and
you proved,
and we
by the way, this proves that the Swiss bankers who are trying to chocolate you and watch you with Swiss gold clocks and everything would tell you a lot of hogwash. I mean, these people, it's the whole system has to be broken open there, and we have to find out what went on. I think I told you that, and I repeated this twice already, I refused an award from the Union of Orthodox Congregations because L'Oreal. L'Oreal maybe is kosher today, but it's certainly, a lot of this money here from these people have funded L'Oreal, so it's just not propitious. And people like you have to fight and stand up, and you do it. Now,
I remember there are 51 council members with a lot of diversity, every race, religion,
but they all agreed
unanimously.
Absolutely.
That was great.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, Christian persecution.
In the course of our investigations, we find out, and we had documented, because of Jews who said, for instance, this is the latest book with an introduction by Michael Horowitz, who's done an awful lot. Their blood cries out, and he says in here, as a survivor with the families involved in the Holocaust, how could Jews stand by and see another people persecuted again and remain silent? A.M. Rosenthal from the New York Times is the one who brought it to my attention.
Coming on our show.
He's the one who brought it to my attention, the articles that he wrote in the Times. We did our own investigation. You mentioned Gary Altman. I had him go out and investigate. I had our whole investigative staff go out and investigate. People are being killed today with some of our gallant allies, like Saudi Arabia. If you convert to Christianity, that's a capital offense. You die.
Really?
In Saudi Arabia.
Oh, that's
you can't wear, you have people that are being tortured.
Now, what are the countries? What are the worst offenders?
We have 15 of them. You have China, you have Sudan, you have Iran, you have Iraq, you have Indonesia. There's a whole list. There's 15 countries that the governmental policy...
They persecute you just if you're a Christian.
Just because you're Christian. And it's Jews that said, how could you stand silent again? And I said, this city is not going to stand silent. And what I did is the same thing. We introduced the same bill that we did with the Swiss banks, and we said, we're going to divest New York City. I can't speak for federal, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I can
speak. Do we trade very strongly with these countries?
Yes, in every one of them.
Really?
But because it's not only that we don't do business with them, but we won't do business with anyone who does business.
Indirect boycott.
Right. And that's what the success of the city is. And I'm saying, we're getting all kinds of the same kind of complaints. You can't do this, you can't conduct foreign policy. I said, look, no one can tell me personally, or you personally, how to invest your money. How dare you try to tell the whole city how to invest its money?
We got to cut for a break, and we'll come right back with Peter Vallone, and he's done another extraordinary thing. He's come down very hard on this terrible story about the Mexicans the deaf Mexicans who have been put to the streets to try and sell trinkets for a bunch of Mexican mobsters. We'll be right back. We're back with Speaker Vallone, Peter Vallone, Speaker of the New York City Council, who's done a phenomenal job on the Nazi Swiss gold, Swiss bank accounts. We've just heard him talk about that Christian persecution in 15 countries. And he's not running his own foreign policy. What he's doing is telling you, look, we got a lot of money, and we're not going to place it with you people who really are immoral and who, you don't come up to what standards we believe people should be when we deal with you. That's really what he's saying.
You don't imprison people because they worship God differently or because they don't worship God at all.
Right. The Mexican business.
Yeah, that's another terror. I mean, what we have is a lot of legal aliens coming to this country. That's how my grandparents came here, and it's a melting pot. But you have illegal aliens that come over and are exploited because they can't complain. And we have very tough laws on the books. I know because I put them there. You know, if you convert, for instance, a 1 or 2 family house to 4 families or more, why are you doing that? You're doing it because you're getting a lot of money and you're putting a lot of families in. Who are the people that are not going to complain? Illegal aliens are not going to complain.
Right.
And they'll pay any rent as you want. You can't do that to the average New York family because, if you're overcrowding it, they're going to complain, the building department. In this case, what happened with the Mexican aliens in Jackson Heights, Queens, is that the community board did a full complaint, send it to the building department, even put that they were deaf-mute, illegally occupied by deaf-mute, being taken advantage of, conversion of a 2-family house into a multiple dwelling. Inspector goes, purportedly, goes inside and says, everything's okay, it's a legal 2-family. And these poor people were exploited for a year, practically enslaved. And I'm furious about it because we had the law. If the law is not enforced,
right,
then how in the world, how we improve the quality of life of our city?
There's no civil society.
There's no society.
Right.
So what I want to know is, I asked for a criminal investigation as well as my own civil investigation. I mean, what happened to this inspector? How could you possibly have not noticed the remnants of 62 people living in a 2-family house?
Right.
So what we're doing now is I got together with the mayor. We worked very well together, obviously, and we're toughening up the law, but we're also toughening up the inspecting unit. We've got to make sure, we're supposed to be public servants, all of us, and that means you have to serve the public and you have to earn your buck. And if you do that, then life will be a lot better for all. We can't cure all of the ills, but certainly you're not going to bring over 62 poor people who can't take care of themselves, have physical infirmities, use them in slavery, and nothing is done about it even after a complaint, a full-fledged complaint, with all of the details is in there.
Anybody know why? No reaction?
No, the fellow is on vacation. Where both the mayor and I are anxiously waiting for him to return, but we have our own investigation.
He may not return.
He may not return. We'll send Joe Coffey after him.
How many investigators, how many inspectors are there?
They're really understaffed. And we have this fight with the administration every year. The council members who live in the district say to the mayor, whoever the mayor is, whether Republican or Democrat, you have to beef up these departments. And they say, no, we have to economize, we have to cut back. People can do more. And we say, what are you talking about? A place like Queens County would be the 19th largest state all by itself. It's 138 square miles. Don't tell me that one inspector is going to be able to do the job. And these guys are just rushing around. They get paid $24,000. You're not going to have that much time to be able to spend in one dwelling. So you need more. So now the mayor, in answer to our call and in answer to our plea, has added on 8 more inspectors, even just in Queens County. But you need that in every borough.
Peter, being that you're speaking about the mayor, you and the mayor have done a hell of a job at the city.
Yes. We have different political agendas. I'm the leading Democrat and he's the leading Republican. But sometimes you have to put politics aside, and the best politics really is good government. And what we have done by working together is we've made the city a lot safer. That's because the council, before he became mayor, earmarked money to do this, to hire the police. But he's a very good administrator, and he knows what he's doing. And you have to combine both. You have to combine resources, and you have to combine good administration, and it's working.
Jobs in the city are picking up?
Yeah, they're new. We're trying to attract new industries into the city. There are things, Leon, someday you'll be able to walk into a store very quickly, just in the next couple of years, and they have what's called photonics, where you're going to be measured by laser beams, and the clothing is going to be made right alongside you.
Really?
And it's going to be fit right. Your beautiful figure will be right.
No more Jewish tailors? No Italian tailors?
You'll always need a good Jewish or
Italian
Italian
byproduct. They make Broadway plays out of these people.
That's right.
How to succeed in business without really trying.
But those are new industries coming along that we're trying to attract into the city, which is tremendous. We have to create more jobs.
What's going on in Times Square? It's blazing.
Times Square, as you can see, is
it's unbelievable.
It's when you can get everyone working together And we're never going to be able to solve all the problems. You're never going to be able to stop all the crimes. And you're never going to be able to stop all the people who throw garbage on the streets. But you can change the whole perception. And that's what we're trying to do here in the city.
All right, Peter, there's rumors around that you may run for governor. Is that false or true?
Because, as you know, we now have term limits in effect in the city of New York. Means that the mayor, myself, everybody else is going to have to leave office at the same time after this present election in 1997. Obviously, we are looking elsewhere. One of the things I've been looking at for a long time is the gridlock that's up there in Albany. We've set a pattern, an example here in the city of working together, of leadership, not looking about arguments to continue fighting about things in the past, but looking to the future, what we can do. People are tired of partisan bickering. And I think that you have a bad situation in Albany. You have people still arguing and having adopted a budget. They're they're 130 days late now. I mean, we're never late, not even a second late in New York City, because we take our work very, very seriously. So I am looking at it very seriously. I think I can provide the kind of leadership in Albany that we need, that we've demonstrated here in New York City, and I think we can change the state around. And if I decide to run, it'll be sometime down the road in the future.
When do you have to make that decision?
That would be probably right after the new year.
It's pretty close.
Pretty close. It's getting there. It's getting there.
What would you say the greatest problem in New York State is today?
Lack of direction, lack of leadership, and political bickering. You know, this is an empire state. New York City, the greatest global city in the world, is part. It's the economic engine of this state. But there are many, many cities in the state that are standing still or even falling back. Industry is not there. When IBM left, it killed 3 counties, Orange County, Greene County, Sullivan County, 7,000 jobs. You can't let that happen. You're going to have something to replace it. I mean, you've got tremendous talent, but you've got to have jobs, and you've got to keep that economy moving. President Bush, learned that lesson. You can't forget about the economy. People need jobs in order to.
You also learn not to speak, Well, no new taxes. Let's talk a little bit about politics. Newt Gingrich, is he in trouble?
I think so. I think that Newt Gingrich is in trouble because there's a kind of a radical group that took office that believe that they should only be there for 2 terms and they should get out, and in those 2 terms they're going to change everything. And it doesn't work that way in business and in life. You have to work at it, and it takes some time, and no one has all the answers. So he's in trouble because he campaigned on the principle that everything was wrong and he was going to make everything right. No, not everything was wrong. Some things were wrong. Most of the things were right. You just had to get it moving in the right direction again. So I think that if they don't clean up their act, and I don't see it, I don't see him lasting after this last coup. I think they're probably going to, by the time the next election comes along, look somewhere else.
The federal budget has gone down precipitously because there's a great economy going on. Everything is nearly perfect, according to Alan Greenspan. Is the same thing happening in the city?
The city, for the first time, is showing a surplus.
Really?
And that took a lot of hard work, Leon. Took a lot. We've cut the budget over $12 billion.
Really?
Since we took power in 1989, while at the same time earmarking more resources to quality of life and cutting a lot of fat out. That doesn't happen overnight. You really have to work at it, and it takes cooperation. It can't be Democrats fighting Republicans. There's got to be people working together.
How many people agree with you on that? I always see people fighting.
Well, we're human, and we disagree. But we understand, at least in New York City, that you've got to come to a consensus. Otherwise, the whole system falls apart.
Peter Vallone is a great man. You know why? He goes to shul every morning, and I'm kidding around. He goes to church every morning and he prays, and a man who prays has got to be on the right track.
And also recognizes he needs a lot of help.
You think, Bill, how's our president doing, Mr. Clinton?
Well, I think that he's gone through a tremendous personal time, too.
I think he's praying, too.
Yeah, he needs a lot of help, too. But I think that he's done a lot of terrific things, but unfortunately, that is not getting as much attention as this Paula Jones business and things like that. And
here's a leap for you. You win the governorship, and then right away you're automatically a nominee for the President of the United States because it's going to be a wide open thing.
Maybe we should take it one step at a time. First, I have to be reelected, what I'm doing.
First, you got to be elected speaker again, right? And then we take you to governor, and then President of the United States. That's not a bad leap, but it can happen. George Pataki was a totally unknown years ago, and I'll bet you they'll be talking about him as a nominee possibly.
They are talking about him.
And Christy Whitman.
Sure.
I mean, you're governor of the state of New York. It's pretty heavy.
That's what makes this country so great, man. Any one of us have an opportunity. You know, this is a country in which every one of us should be able to aspire to whatever life has to offer.
Peter, a million thanks for coming on. We really appreciate what you've done with the Swiss bank accounts, not only Jews, but the human beings and the Christian persecutions, and good luck on your governor's run if you decide.
Terrific.
We'll be back next week, not with Peter Vallone, maybe Newt Gingrich.